For many children in South Africa, queuing for water is still an everyday task.
Sometimes water cannot come.
Scarce for millions, available to others in abundance. The advertising message is clear. Water is a foodstuff for those who can afford it. So how exactly does the worldwide water business actually work?
Big business, growing business.
We're on the trail of the bottled water industry, which even draws on dwindling water resources.
It's wrong to commercialize and privatize what should be something that every person on this planet should be entitled to: clean, safe drinking water.
Our investigation gets underway in German supermarkets. Here we find mankind's most precious food resource neatly packaged in plastic. Tests have shown that the quality of tap water is often just as good or even better than that of bottled water. And tap water is a lot cheaper. Yet the bottled water business is booming. Nestlé is the market leader. The international concern markets Pure Life and 63 other brands in 36 countries. But how do firms like Nestlé, Coca-Cola, Pepsi or Danone manage to gain control of many of the world's best sources of drinking water? Vevey on Lake Geneva is where Nestlé, the world's biggest food concern, has its headquarters. Former CEO Helmut Maucher set the goal. With water now a dwindling commodity worldwide, Nestlé, he said, had to have control of its sources. Nestlé advertises for its business model with the remarkable slogan, "So let's drink to better health and to a healthier planet." For example, with Arrowhead water. Nestlé bottles its Arrowhead water here in Colorado. Chaffee County is an upland desert in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. As a result of climate change and environmental pollution, water resources are diminishing worldwide. The price of water is rising relentlessly, in the United States too.
Okay, Chris.
We've got an appointment with a man who criticizes Nestlé. John Graham claims that the concern should never have been given the rights to the region's best source of drinking water.
And what I have here, Christian, is a couple of aerial maps that show where Nestlé has decided to purchase land and get water rights. As you can see, this is an area that is quite dry looking. It's brittle. It's lots of rock, lots of cactus. Water is a very, very valuable resource, and every little bit is important.
John Graham wants to show us Nestlé's pumping station just outside the small town of Salida.
You'll notice up here on the left that it's all brown over there. It's dry. I can't imagine why anybody would think that this is a place to come and harvest water. There's just hardly any water in the first place.
Year after year, this retired architect complains the spring thaw is bringing less and less water down from the Rockies. Farmers are barely able to irrigate their fields.
Nestlé would like to come and get control over the blue gold, and they have the money to do it. And considering how much money they spent to get access to this resource, it lets me know that there is a credible amount of money to be made.
There is nothing to indicate here that Nestlé withdraws 675,000 litres of water every day. The water wheels lie hidden deep beneath two inconspicuous pump houses. Because of their fears for man and nature, together with other residents, John has launched an initiative. There has been no adequate analysis, they complain, of the impact of removing groundwater on such a massive scale. Many towns in the United States are now mounting growing resistance to the sellout of their water, as John calls it.
That's their loading station.
The tankers waiting to be refilled bear no lettering to indicate the contents, but this sign shows that the water is destined for Arrowhead.
What's called spring water has gone 5 miles through pipe, then it's gotten loaded onto a tanker truck, both of which have to get sterilized periodically. Then it goes for 120 miles to Denver. To call that spring water and sell it to people as some magically healthy, pure substance, that's really pulling the wool over everybody's eyes. They bottle 2 different products there. They bottle what they call Arrowhead, and then they're also bottling under something called Pure Life. They're just taking Denver water, Denver's own tap water, and putting it in bottles. It's the same water everybody gets out of their tap in Denver. They probably can buy it for 2 cents a gallon, and they probably sell it for the equivalent of $10 a gallon. Yeah. It's theft, it's theft, and it's profiteering. That's it.
But how did Nestlé gain control of the source in the first place? An environmental report was drawn up on the possible effects of withdrawing water. The expert who carried out the analysis raised serious concerns.
Even small drawdowns could de-water the aquifer in times of extended drought. Proposed withdrawals will also affect the wetland natural hydro period, which can affect wetland stability.
But the critical report was never published. Instead, the analysis commissioned by Nestlé itself was reworked and placed before the decision-making committee. This time no concerns were expressed, and the report was signed by the same ecologist who had drawn up the critical survey and by her superior. Afraid of losing her job, the ecologist herself was not prepared to make a statement on camera. She referred us to local reporter Lee Hart.
Hello.
Okay, welcome to Salida.
Nice meeting you. Okay, thanks a lot.
Lee Hart writes a blog. She knows the ecologist well. She's under great pressure, Lee says, but she still stands by her concerns.
The change of the content of the report occurred after Nestlé had seen the first draft of the study, and they didn't like what they saw. It said that there would be ecological impacts and that there would be environmental impacts, and they went ahead and contacted CNHP, and in particular, a professor emeritus at CSU, Dr. Hagen. Professor Hagen was the landowner who was going to be selling his property where these wells are located. And so he seemed to have had a vested interest in that report saying something different and more favorable so that, the whole project could move forward and he could get the money for his land.
Landowner Professor Hagen told us he saw no conflict of interests, and the university explained that the committee was simply of a different opinion to that of its lady colleague, hence the second report.
It came out with, completely different final conclusions. The first one said, we have serious concerns about it. The second one said, it's good to go. Something else was in play.
In other U.S. towns too, Graham told us Nestlé is using any means at its disposal to fight for water, including litigation.
One of the commissioners said, if we don't give Nestlé the permits that they're wanting, you know what's going to happen? They'll sue us. And that threat of being sued by Nestlé was really powerful, and the commissioners didn't want the possibility of a lawsuit because the county can't afford a lawsuit. You're taking a significant amount of water that really should stay in this valley.
That's Nestlé's ultimate end game and ultimate end play, and we're just like this little pawn that was easy to prey on. They did their homework. They found the best possible place to grab the water. For Nestlé, it's this happy opportunity to make some money, really easy money along the way, to basically their overall goal of privatizing water. this is what epic drought looks like, and this propagates throughout the valley when you have epic drought. It's not a pretty picture, and it definitely makes you think, well, how can you allow a private company to have 65 million gallons of water when this can happen?
Nestlé pays roughly $200,000 a year to Salida in the form of compensation for the water. By comparison, the same volume in bottles costs $185 million. On American TV channel Fox News, the American boss of Nestlé Waters was praised for achieving such high profit margins.
Great to have you on the show. Big business, growing business.
Our focus is on healthy hydration, and we're by far the largest bottled water company in North America. So gallons a year to 44 gallons a year. Now that's per capita.
To ensure that water profits continue to rise, Nestlé's Kim Jeffrey is also turning to other methods. We obtained a copy of a letter which the firm's American CEO wrote to the head of the company, which markets the Brita filtered brand in the US. In it, Jeffrey complains about Brita's advertising campaign, ranting that filtered tap water could never have the same quality as Nestlé water, and demanding that the relevant Brita commercials be withdrawn. The bottled water industry does everything it can to badmouth public water. The former CEO of Pepsi, Robert Morrison, put it in a nutshell when he said, "Our biggest enemy is tap water." At Poland Springs, another Nestlé brand, they don't like being filmed, even when the camera is on public land.
Get out of here. Go. Private property.
Proceedings involving Nestlé. A court in Chicago was asked to rule on whether Nestlé itself labeled and sold tap water as mineral water. We're flying on to South Africa. There too, Nestlé is purchasing drinking water licenses, true to the old company motto of controlling sources. Where does the water which Nestlé bottles here come from? In a place with less and less water on the world's poorest continent. Many people in Africa still have no access to clean drinking water or sanitary installations, even though the United Nations has declared it to be a human right. South Africa. Not far from Pretoria lies the Doornkloof Spring, which has been utilised commercially by Nestlé since 2011. Every day, 282,000 litres of water are bottled and dispatched from a place where it formed as a subterranean treasure. Pre-packed under blue tarpaulins, it is now called Pure Life, but no one here can afford Pure Life. Opposite the plant, only 100 metres away, is a highway. Day labourers disappear down a tunnel, along with people carrying plastic canisters. Two men from the Nestlé plant approach us and tell us that this is where they work. They show us that occasionally they're allowed to take away any bottles with a damaged label. But they don't have running water at home, we learn. And that's not far away. Over there, he says, at the end of the tunnel. On the other side, only a stone's throw from the factory, is where the two Nestlé workers live, surrounded by refuse, rats and toilets, and, like the rest of the settlement, with no running water. We wanted to know more and met up with David Moloki. He works for a civic association which focuses on the interests of the poorest of the poor. The land, he told us, does not belong to those occupying it. The families, around 3,000 people, have been living here for 30 years. They're merely tolerated. Moloki listens and notes the complaints.
Are you happy by the way you are living here or not?
I'm not happy. I'm not happy. Because here, no future. You see the children.
Okay.
No cleaners, no water, no houses. It's a plastic houses.
There are only few people who have.
Many here are unemployed, but some of the men do have a job. Like Lawrence, they work for Nestlé in the water plant.
And I wrote to this myself.
Each shift starts at 6 in the morning and lasts for 12 hours. At midday, we get a break of 15 minutes. There is no canteen. We have to take our food with us. But we can have Nestlé ice cream for nothing. All we get to drink are 2 half-litre bottles of water a day. I could drink them at work, of course, but often I save the bottles and bring them home for my children.
Nestlé advertising says that to stay healthy we should drink at least 2 litres of water a day. Lawrence finds that amusing.
Nestlé waters. Drink this waters. Nestlé water from the Nestlé. This water is good for everybody.
Pure irony. Lawrence's sister wants to head off with her canister to fetch some water, but her brother holds her back. He hasn't finished poking fun at his employer.
From what? Nestlé waters.
And so, as if it were champagne, they drink the same water that only a few hundred meters away flows beneath their native soil, bottled by a major Swiss corporation and sold at a price they cannot afford.
Don't put the bottle in the dirt. That's good water.
How can it be that people should live only 400 meters from a spring, yet themselves be cut off from water? We put this question at the Ministry for Water Affairs in Pretoria. Why, we asked, was Nestlé given the license for Pure Life in Doornkloof in the first place?
As you know, in the past, historically disadvantaged people, or blacks to be specific, we did not have entitlement to use water. And that picture is still not yet balanced. So that's one of the things that we look at. That is why we do no longer want to issue water authorization or licenses for a longer period, because we want to meet equity at the end of the day. However, to be specific to your question, the license issued to Nestlé is for 20 years.
So, fair distribution will have to be put on hold for at least 2 decades. And until then, at least, Nestlé will have the exclusive right to withdraw 103 million litres of water a year.
Could you tell us specifically if Nestlé was monitored since they actually used the source?
Not yet, because you realize that their license is still very new. And we still have others that we've issued for about in about a longer period than Nestlé that we still are dealing with. So theirs is still relatively new, and we're not even sure as to whether they have started with the extraction or the abstraction of the resource as yet.
They'd only need to take a look, but those responsible don't appear to be interested, not even in the fact that the human right to water is being denied to many who live next to the source. From South Africa to Switzerland and the regional court in Lausanne, these women are seeking justice. For months, they were spied on by 3 female agents planted in their group on behalf of Nestlé. The women were working on a book critical of the company.
The agents who infiltrated our group enabled them to gather data on us, and not only on us, but also on all our contacts in Switzerland and abroad. Where this is concerned, I'd like to mention Colombia and Brazil, especially Colombia, since we were in contact with trade unionists, and that, of course, is a highly dangerous issue. This kind of information has all gone to Nestlé.
Knowledge is power, and so Nestlé used Secret Service methods to obtain information on its critics and their strategies.
They justify their infiltration by saying that Attack is a violent organization. But Attack is a peaceful organization. It has never called for violent action of any kind.
Mr. Fischer, does Nestlé need to stoop to such methods?
The lawyer for the Securitas security company which planted the spies with Attack on behalf of Nestlé ignored all questions. This man, too, was a victim of Nestlé espionage. Brazilian conservationist and water activist Franklin Frederick is one of the fiercest critics of the company's business practices.
I was scared. Brazil isn't as violent as Colombia, but violence does exist there too. And obviously, it is quite easy to organize an accident in Brazil.
Frederick told us that in Colombia a trade unionist has already been murdered. According to statements by witnesses, he has been described as a terrorist by representatives of a local Nestlé subsidiary. Frederick was shocked by the news. After all, he too has been active against Nestlé in Brazil.
My attention was drawn to Sao Lourenço, where Nestlé bought a beautiful aquatic park with lots of water sources. In violation of our laws, Nestlé built a factory on this aquatic park and started producing bottles of pure life water. They are withdrawing so much water that the entire groundwater level has dropped.
But in Lausanne, it's not about groundwater shrinkage, billions of dollars profit through grabbing water sources for a song, or factory workers with no access to drinking water. It's only about espionage.
Are these the methods Nestlé uses? Is that really necessary?
Nestlé's lawyer remains discreet and politely refers the reporter to the firm's PR department. But for months, all requests for an interview are turned down. We give it a final try at Nestlé itself in Vevey, but once again with no success. The company later pointed out in writing that water utilization was taking place in full compliance with instructions from the appropriate authorities. In Brazil, too, it said legal requirements had been strictly adhered to. We've come to Brazil to investigate the allegations made against Nestlé by water activist Franklin Frederick. What are the possible consequences of withdrawing water on an excessive scale? This huge country has water in abundance, but the public water supply is often inadequate. In the poor quarters, the favelas, clean drinking water is a rare commodity. The Sao Lourenço aquatic park in the federal state of Minas Gerais is owned by Nestlé. It consists of 9 mineral springs. For an admission fee of €2.30, locals too can enjoy the water. But Nestlé itself is thirstier. Screened off from prying eyes, in the year 2000, the company built a plant for withdrawing huge quantities of water for the production of pure life. At the same time, prior to bottling, minerals were removed from the water on a huge scale, obviously to attain a neutral taste. According to a report, the plant was built on the ecologically most sensitive area of the aquatic park. Local resident Luciana Lee complains that not only has the groundwater level dropped, one of the springs has been contaminated with excrement.
Looks wonderful, doesn't it? It has been beautifully restored. Unfortunately, the spring isn't safe. It has been contaminated. You can't trust the water anymore. What is more, the spring has suffered from the excessive withdrawal of water for pure life. And all the other springs in the park have suffered too.
In 2004, Franklin Frederick, Luciana Lee and other residents of São Lourenço took Nestlé to court. The court ruled that the demineralization was illegal, and so too was construction of the water plant.
The concept for pure life water was absurd, truly absurd, and the demineralization was totally illegal. But that was precisely what they had in mind here. Loopholes in Brazilian law allowed them to do what they wanted for a long time, just like they do in many other poor countries. Millions of liters of water were withdrawn. The noise was intolerable. Hundreds of trucks took the water away round the clock. Loudest of all, though, was the demineralization machine, which robbed the water of its valuable contents.
The headquarters of the World Bank in Washington, D.C. The bank plays a key role in the water deals of Western concerns. For years, loans given to developing countries were linked to the demand that, in return, their water supply and distribution systems be privatized. So did Nestlé also benefit from a political alliance with the World Bank? At the World Economic Summit in Davos in 2011, a project was launched. South Africa's Minister of Water Affairs entered into a new partnership with the Water Resources Group, a lobby organization made up of Western concerns. The agreement was that the firms would help poor countries overcome the problem of scarce water resources. Under the direction of Nestlé CEO Peter Brabeck.
What's in it for Nestlé?
It is very important for us. You talked about long-term. We were looking long-term. What would be obstacles to growth for the world economy? And we found out that the water situation was one of the most important obstacles for growth.
In other words, the supply of water to industry is to be secured and politicians given advice. The Water Resources Group has its headquarters at the IFC, a department of the World Bank.
The companies that we are working with so far is Nestlé, Coca-Cola and PepsiCo. Then it's IFC itself. It's also on the donor side. We have a contribution from the Swiss Development Corporation.
Back in South Africa, the Water Resources Group has itself stated that it intends to improve the water situation. But the man we met doesn't believe this promise. According to farmer Koos Pretorius, it's not a case of poor water hindering growth, but of unrestricted growth causing a water problem. Industry, he says, is contaminating drinking water on a vast scale. Pretorius has brought us to the outskirts of Carolina, a town with 30,000 inhabitants.
We have a mine about 150 meters that way on the other side of the road, which has been rehabilitated. And what the mine has done here is they've now put in a pipe, and it runs in the pipe into that tin over there, which normally that would work then to put limestone in to lime the water. And it goes into the dam here, but it's still very acid. And then it overflows the dam and it goes down the valley into the stream at the bottom, which goes into the town's water supply. This is the pH of the water I'm measuring. And drinking water standard may not be below 5.5. Now, 3.7, 3.6. And this is pure battery acid. Pure battery acid. 3.6. All of the coal mining areas of South Africa has this problem, and it's not being addressed. And what happened in this town was the town actually didn't have water to drink for 9 months because of the high acidity, which contained very, very high levels of aluminium, manganese, iron, and sulfates. Now you have mining companies coming in and they are polluting the water. Then you have bottling companies coming in and say, but we want the best water. All right? So what is left then for the rest of us? So the pure short-term economical benefit of a party being either a mining company or a bottling company is putting far in excess of what the normal people want that can't afford it.
In the town supermarket, we discovered that clean water is available after all. Pure Life from Nestlé, touted as water you can trust. The advertising slogan implies that public water isn't safe. And Coase believes that the bottled water concerns are not interested in the present situation changing. He took us to a mosque where the poor go who can't afford bottled water.
Hi, this is the local mosque behind us, and it's one of two places where there's water for about 12,000 people if they don't want to drink the town water.
And so they come here, most of them children. Some have walked many kilometres to queue up for a little clean water, as if this were a filling station for life itself. The water is a gift from the mosque. For adults too, collecting water is a real burden.
Most people here are out of work. I still have a job, so I can't really queue for hours for water and then carry it several kilometers. But I have to.
At home, tap water has again been flowing for 9 months, but they still come here.
This water makes us like we look, you see, it's making me like this. Everyone can see. We get the toilets many times, so we can't drink the water because it's unhealthy. All of the children get water here.
All of the children depend on this water?
Yes.
From Carolina, we head back to Pretoria. More and more voices in South Africa are calling for the leading manufacturers of bottled water to participate financially in solving the problems.
The Water Resources Group could assist the South African, especially the poor, by engaging with communities to see what are their real needs. Not to, for example, make tokenism statements, aspirational statements. We want to see implementation.
Back at the ministry, we ask what a partnership with the bottled water industry's lobby group is supposed to achieve.
There are certain programs that are already running with this group.
Can you give us examples or a list of these projects? For example, what is Nestlé concretely doing?
I wouldn't say Nestlé as such, as I wouldn't single it out because we are working with them as a group.
Mariette Lieferink, a well-known conservationist in South Africa, tried to obtain donations from another member of the Water Resources Group. SAB Miller, the world's second biggest brewery concern, was asked to support a project geared to treating polluted wastewater from the mines. But instead of financial help for her organisation, Mariette received something quite different.
I received this award recently from the SAB breweries. It comes without any funding or sponsorship, but we are paralysed without funding. So while it's, I think, quite a prestigious award, it is really just a piece of paper.
The conservationist wrote to the beverage manufacturer a second time, imploring the company to help eradicate the problem of polluted water. The response was unequivocal.
Dear Mariette, it is simply our considered opinion that we can make a bigger impact in particular areas than in the other, for example, acid mine drainage, where other companies may have a bigger contribution to make. SAB respects your personal contribution to the national environment in the country. Kind regards, Andre Fourie, Head of Sustainable Development of SAB Miller.
Nestlé explained that the Water Resources Group had set up study groups to look into efficient water utilization, irrigation systems and wastewater management. So what could suggest itself more than also helping to treat sewage?
Do they clean already water, for example? Which comes out of
the acid mine drainage? No, they are not part of that group. That project as yet. As you know, the partnership would involve quite a number of things. It could involve them funding a particular project.
It could.
Sometimes partly. Not yet. It's not yet. But remember, this is still new.
People in Carolina are desperate to have safe drinking water again. George Tembesi has again lugged some back for his wife from a standpipe a long way off. The couple have to bring up their 2 grandsons on their own. George showed us scars on the boy's skin. They'd been very sick, he said, with a rash and a high temperature. A really serious situation. A neighbour translated for us.
They took the child to the doctor, to the hospital, and then the doctor said no, the child had a problem because he was this water. They drink too much of this water and they must stop drinking it. Because if they do that, maybe the child can die. If they continue to drink the dirty water, what they must do, they must go and buy the water from the town.
Out of the question, Grandfather George says, they just can't afford bottled water. The family of 4 have to survive on a minimum pension of €70 a month.
Where we could get the money to pay because we are not employed. We are surviving with the grant money, but we would appreciate if next time such problem arises. We will appreciate if the water companies can come and provide the water for free, maybe for a month or something, just to say, okay, guys, this is how we are helping you.
George is proud of the tap in his garden, which could supply the whole family, but it's useless as long as the water remains a health hazard.
The water can be clean again because they make us sick.
Back to Lake Geneva in Switzerland and Franklin Frederick, the water activist Nestlé had spied on. The case against the food giant has been dragging on for 10 months. Is an example ever going to be set? Finally, on January the 25th, judgment is passed. Nestlé is found guilty of espionage activity and violating the rights of the individual. Franklin and a tax lawyer are satisfied, even though Nestlé has to pay no more than €5,000 compensation.
I'm grateful that the judge studied the issue in such depth. We're so happy with the judgment, which again gives us hope in Swiss justice.
There's hope here too in the poor settlement in South Africa close to the Pure Life water plant. At long last, a water tanker has arrived. It has not been paid for by Nestlé though. The tanker was financed through a donation campaign in Pretoria. But the people here still have no permanent water supply, not even contaminated water from a standpipe. We also come across Lawrence again, who works at Nestlé's Pure Life bottling plant. Here he's taking as much as he can carry back to his hut. His children are thirsty. Lawrence wants to tell us something. Moloki, the man from the Civic Association, will translate. It's only a thought, Lawrence says, but since our last visit, he's been reflecting on things.
He proposed if maybe the Nestlé company can donate water and as they can make sure that the community must access the water, that clean water from that side to here. He's not happy that the government must give Nestlé water production license because they are having that water, they can't drink it. Sometimes when they drink it, they've got a running stomach and a running tummy. Yeah, so by that way, it's not happy at all.
But Nestlé would rather send vendors selling the company's own products. Within the framework of the Water Resources Group, the concern told us several projects are being run which involve leaks in water pipes being repaired. But there's not even a water pipe here in the first place. A litre bottle of Pure Life costs around €1, but no one here can afford that.
How much does he own?
So there's no basic salary. Yeah. It's only commission. Okay, they're saying they are getting their salary due to the commission that they're making from
So if they don't sell any ice cream here in the township, for example, then they don't get money?
If you look at Lily Mupula Yana, La Honorekisa, so Likrachaleta
It's the end of the day. Time to fetch water. Some occupants of the settlement set out through the tunnel on the other side of the highway. Here, not far from the Nestlé bottling plant, there's a standpipe. The pipe has been generously provided by Nestlé, a few drops for 3,000 people. In the background, the bottling plant producing hundreds of millions of litres of Pure Life. Today, Lawrence, the Nestlé worker, is on the night shift. For the next 12 hours, through to tomorrow morning, he'll be bottling Pure Life. For many children in South Africa, queuing for water is still an everyday task.
Sometimes water cannot come.
Scarce for millions, available to others in abundance. The advertising message is clear. Water is a foodstuff for those who can afford it. So how exactly does the worldwide water business actually work?
Big business, growing business.
We're on the trail of